In a bombshell move that has left millions of elderly Brits stunned, Labour leader Keir Starmer and Chancellor Rachel Reeves have announced a controversial cut to the winter fuel payment, a lifeline for some of the UK's most vulnerable pensioners. With energy bills surging as the cold winter months approach, the decision has sparked outrage and disbelief from across the political spectrum. Critics are calling it a betrayal of those most in need, while Labour's union allies seem to be reaping the benefits. One of the harshest critics is Tory leadership hopeful Robert Jenrick, who blasted the move as selfish and shameful. According to Jenrick, Starmer is taking money from poor pensioners to line the pockets of Labour's union paymasters. As the political fallout continues, the question on everyone's mind is whether Labour will survive this scandal, or if this marks the beginning of their downfall. Before we dive into the details, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to keep up with the latest developments in British politics. We'll be bringing you all the facts on this outrageous policy and what it means for pensioners across the country. The winter fuel payment is a critical financial support system for millions of pensioners across the UK, designed to help cover heating costs during the coldest months of the year. With energy prices reaching unprecedented levels, this payment has never been more essential. For many elderly people living on fixed incomes, the ability to stay warm this winter could come down to this benefit. That's why Labour's decision to cut this payment by up to £600 has caused a massive public outcry. Robert Jenrick, speaking at the Conservative Party conference in Birmingham, didn't hold back in his criticism of Labour's decision. He claimed that Keir Starmer is putting union pay raises ahead of pensioners' welfare and accused him of making a deliberately political choice to rob the poor to pay the unions. Jenrick was particularly critical of the fact that train drivers, some of the highest-paid workers in the country, are set to receive a £10,000 raise, all while millions of pensioners are left out in the cold. This is a clear-cut case of political opportunism, Jenrick told GB News. Keir Starmer is making a choice, a selfish bad choice, to give millions to his union friends at the expense of those who need it most. It's outrageous. The timing of this cut couldn't be worse. The UK is facing one of the most severe cost-of-living crises in recent memory, with energy prices skyrocketing and inflation continuing to climb. For pensioners living on modest incomes, the winter fuel payment is often the difference between staying warm or freezing through the winter. Cutting this benefit now has left many pensioners feeling abandoned by a government that promised to protect them. And perhaps most troubling of all is the dishonesty surrounding this move. As Jenrick pointed out, Labour never mentioned this drastic cut during their election campaign. In fact, many voters feel blindsided by the decision. They didn't tell the public this was coming, Jenrick fumed. Labour hid this policy from voters, knowing full well how unpopular it would be. It's a complete betrayal of trust. The consequences of this decision could be devastating. With energy bills rising, some pensioners are already facing the grim reality of having to choose between heating and eating. For those who rely on the winter fuel payment, the cut could mean they won't be able to afford to keep their homes warm as temperatures drop. Fuel poverty is a real and growing problem, and this cut will only make it worse for the most vulnerable members of society. While pensioners are seeing their benefits slashed, Labour's union allies are set to cash in. Critics argue that the decision to cut the winter fuel payment is driven by a desire to appease powerful unions, many of whom are pushing for higher wages for their members, and it seems like Labour is all too happy to oblige. According to Jenrick, train drivers, who are already some of the best-paid workers in the country, will receive a £10,000 raise thanks to Labour's union-friendly policies. It's a simple case of political favoritism, Jenrick claimed. Labour is putting the interests of their union backers above the needs of ordinary people. And who suffers? Pensioners, who are already struggling to make ends meet. Jenrick wasn't the only one to voice outrage. Across the country, pensioners' advocacy groups have expressed deep concern over the cut. Many are warning that it could lead to a public health crisis as elderly people, unable to afford to heat their homes, become more vulnerable to illnesses caused by cold weather. "This isn't just about politics," said one advocate. "This is about people's lives." Labour's defence of the policy has only added fuel to the fire. Rachel Reeves, standing by the decision, claimed that the cuts are necessary to free up funds to settle ongoing strikes and ensure fair wages for workers. But many see this as a lame excuse, with critics arguing that Labour is risking the health and well-being of millions of pensioners in exchange for political gain. The winter fuel payment debacle isn't the only problem Labour is facing right now. Robert Jenrick has also taken the opportunity to slam Labour's housing policy, which he says is failing to address the UK's housing crisis. According to Jenrick, Labour is focusing on the wrong areas, cutting housing targets in urban areas where demand is high, while increasing them in rural areas where fewer homes are needed. Labour's housing policy is a complete disaster, Jenrick told GB News. They're building in the wrong places, and it's making it harder for young people to get on the property ladder. The UK's housing crisis has been a major issue for years, with house prices skyrocketing and many young people unable to afford to buy their own homes. Labour promised to fix the problem, but according to Jenrick, they're going about it in entirely the wrong way. Instead of building more homes where people need them, Labour is focused on low-demand areas, leaving urban centres struggling with housing shortages. Jenrick has proposed a radical overhaul of the UK's planning system, which he says would make it easier to build homes in high-demand areas and get young people on the housing ladder. He's also expressed willingness to work with Labour on NHS reform, although he remains deeply sceptical about whether they will deliver on their promises. If Labour brings forward genuine reforms that improve productivity and patient outcomes, I'll support them, Jenrick said. But I'm not holding my breath. Labour has a long history of caving to union demands, and I suspect the same will happen with the NHS. The decision by Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves to slash the winter fuel payment has ignited a political firestorm, with millions of pensioners left wondering how they'll afford to stay warm this winter. The move has been widely condemned as a betrayal of the most vulnerable, with critics like Robert Jenrick accusing Labour of prioritising union pay raises over the welfare of the public. As winter approaches, the consequences of this decision will become painfully clear. Fuel poverty is already a growing issue, and cutting this crucial benefit will only make it worse. At the same time, Labour's policies on housing and the NHS are coming under increasing scrutiny, with many questioning whether the party is truly up to the task of governing during such a challenging time. For now, Labour's union allies may be celebrating, but the political fallout from this decision is far from over. Will Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves backtrack in the face of public pressure, or will they double down on this deeply unpopular move? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain, the public won't forget this betrayal anytime soon. Make sure to like and subscribe for more updates on this evolving story and other major political events. Stay tuned for more.